Lesson 12-2, Percent Sense. By the end of today's lesson, you will be able to mentally compare percents of a number as well as estimate what percent one number is of another. Here we have different grids representing different percentages. If we were asked what is greater, 3% of 100 or 30% of 100, what would you say? Well, here we have this picture shows 3% of 100. This is what shows what 3% would look like, and here's what 30% would look like. We also have them in decimal form like this. So it shows that 30% of 100 is greater than 3% of 100. It makes sense that since we're comparing two numbers that are the same parts, the 100 part, it would make sense that a bigger number would be a bigger number. So here we'd have 30% as opposed to 3%. Here, though, we have different numbers. So if we're asked which is less, 30% of 60, which is right here, or 30% of 80. So our part is the same, but the whole is different. So 30% of 60 or 30% of 80. This picture shows that 30% of 60 is less than 30% of 80. Here we'd have, it would make sense, it's just logical to think of it that way because we're comparing the same percentage of two numbers, and 60% is smaller than 80. Or sorry, the whole number 60 is smaller than 80. You can also use mental math to estimate what percent one number is of another. So here we have a picture of a clock, and we're told that math class is 55 minutes long. 10 minutes are used to check homework. So we've graphed that right here. True or false? 10 minutes is more than 50% of the class time. So we would think, is 10 over 55, because this is the part on top, the whole is on the bottom of the class, is that greater than 50%? So we would think 50% equals 1/2. And 1/2 of 55 is more than 1/2 of 50, which we know that 1/2 of 50, that this actually equals 25. We know that easily in our heads. So 10 minutes is less than 50% of the class time. So 10 minutes is less than that 50% of class time. So the statement is false. I want you to mentally compute this. 50% of 20 is greater than or less than 50% of 40. Pause that, figure it out, and then come back and check. Okay, this would actually be less than, because 50% is half. Half of 20 is 10, and in my head I know that half of 40 is 20. 20 is greater than 10. So for your math today, you're going to be computing mentally. Some of these you're going to need to pull out that chart from the last lesson that tells different percentages and what fractions they equal. So go ahead and rewatch any part of today's lesson and make sure you have your notes from yesterday before doing today's assignment.